Okay, please continue.
Thank you. Thank you. And please, when the ambassador is back online, please feel free to interrupt at any point. So we'll go back to Dr. Pimenta. Data governance, privacy, and ethics, your comments.
Thank you so much. I think you framed very well the issue of governance. So I'm gonna just focus on one since we'll have four of us speaking, and the way we try to kind of build a governance system at our institution to kind of ensure uh, privacy, confidentiality, safety of patient data, um, and ethical use of AI. I think Dr. Chen, rightly so, kind of pointed out that the basic foundation is data infrastructure. And as we kind of bring AI tools into our EHR space, one of the things and that's the part of governance I would like to speak a little bit about, is validation, um, with more specifically continuous validation, because I think perhaps this is a little bit least discussed and perhaps a dangerous gap. Encryption, the de-identification are table stakes necessary for every serious institutions already already know them. What worries me is more treating validated models as permanently validated. Um, as clinical AI is not static, nor is operational AI. Patient population shifts, disease patterns evolve, practices changes, workflow changes and need to be adjusted and will evolve as we incorporated AI into the workflow. As models can drift quietly away from what we need. So we have systems of committees that are in the clinical operational side constantly not only approving the deployment and acquisition of those AI tools into our workflows, but constantly monitoring and adjusting and refining those tools together with our clinicians and non-clinical staff to make sure they remain relevant. I just wanted to kind of stop there and kind of bring this uh, thought to the discussion, and I'll let the others speak a little bit more on the other aspects of
Thanks.
governance.
Thanks so much, Isabel. Thank you. Dr. Chen, your comments?
Thank you so much for the question. I think one of the thoughts is there should be a separation of policy and standard versus actual implementation. I think this is where a lot of time people have great policy and implement thinking, but when it comes to implementation, often just people get tripped up. So, for example, a year ago, you remember Microsoft almost took down the entire world. Like airlines, it was a global outage of Microsoft. That was caused by one engineer linking to a one SYS file. That file was created like, different like a 20, 30 years ago, right? One engineer called this global downtime, right? So often that's a challenge often when it comes to security, privacy, that's where the holes is. So one of the things I recommend is in your hospital, your country level, put the people who have written code in charge, right? Just ask them, when was the last time you actually wrote a piece of code that was deployed? If they haven't done that, they could be a great policy, but often don't put them in charge of actual implementation because often they want to know what to do, right? That's the first thing, right? The good news is there are a lot of AI tools that can help you make the system secure. And for example, but you should also assume you're going to get attacked. The same tools that Anthropic, all these people are creating to help you, they could be turned around to attack your system. So now the idea is, right, if you assume your system will be attacked, sooner the system become large enough, there's financial incentive for people to attack you. What is your process to deal with that? Again, I think by using those type of thinking, you allow it to bake into software security into your core foundation of your software, and that will help you to prepare. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Milton. Moving on to Dr. Malisi, please. Dr. Igbe, I saw your note. Thank you. The audience questions, just so that we are we may be addressing those questions in the next set of questions. So if you wouldn't mind being patient, we'll circle back after the final question. Thanks so much. Dr. Malissi.
Okay, thanks. So I will build on what I've started by saying what helped us to scale up after 3 months of pilot, and also the comment that the last speaker, Dr. Ronke, has mentioned regarding to the workforce. I think just to put in sequence, even to avoid any harm in between, I think the first foundation is to make sure that it's ownership of the technology. The government has to be involved. That's the first thing to actually take time to process and make sure there is a full buy-in from the government that uses and then scales up. Second one is the data that people can actually trust. An AI that's been trained with from Boston or Newark, I don't think that works in an African context. So what has to come is, and also AI is as good as the data that's actually fed in. So it's very important that the data is local, and that and there is a loop system where AI continues to train to optimize and then provide the service that's required. So that's also helps to avoid any harm in between. Second one is I think that power and connectivity has to come as a third level or as a third foundation. The last one is people who can run it without you. Once you put an AI to address some challenges or gaps or bottlenecks, so there must be a local expertise with that capability to run once you are not there anymore, when the project is over. So that capacity building has to be built together with the project that's getting into the system. So I think ownership before data before models, and people before all of it. If you reverse any of this, actually could fail, or could perhaps be difficult to audit. I think that's the main thing. And then to wrap it up, it's all about data and also ownership. Thanks.
And thank you, Dr. Malissi. This is so critical because it's something that during past conversations with Dr. Chen, he's always emphasized, clean data set, locally sourced data versus data from New Jersey in the middle of Africa. But thank you so much. Dr. Akerile, you're next. You're on the hot seat.
Okay, I think for me, from an NHS and UK perspective, really, I would say responsible deployment rests on 4 practical pillars. One will be on privacy and security, so using trust as a foundation. We've been fortunate that we've established frameworks like we call it GDPR, it's General Data Protection Regulation, which became law, a common law of duty on confidentiality. And in some roles, I've had to be the SRO and call the court guardian to bring this data protection regulation to reality. We have a mature information governance practices across the NHS. There's clear expectation around data minimization, consent, secure handling, and honestly, what AI means to all that is really enabling us to build strong cybersecurity and resilience. It's helping us to ensure that there's transparency with patients about how their data is used. But the gap globally, based on some of the work we've done with the WHO Collaborating Center, is that there is pace versus protection. So there's a bit of pace. AI is going so much at pace that sometimes it's not meeting the pace we need for our evolving governance framework. The other element is about moving from awareness to action. So really, we need to, AI can kind of amplify existing inequalities in our system, whether there's inequalities with regards to ethnicity, gender, social economic status, or geography. So really responsible deployments is about ensuring that we have a diverse representative data sets. So looking at our primary care data and also our secondary care data, ongoing auditing, looking at our algorithms. We do a lot of predictive modeling, predictive analysis, and good clinical oversight to challenge outputs that don't really feel right. The two other things are about patients' rights and benefit sharing. In my part of the world, the patients tend to know best and feel they know best, and we have to try to make them at the center. So we can't make patients become passive about data sources. So how do we ensure that patients have got access to their data? The AI delivers tangible improvements to patient care. And lastly, it's policy and legal maturity, really. We are fortunate in the UK to have relatively mature regulatory architecture. But even with that, AI accountability, decision making is not clear. So I would say that, I mean, we have foundations of trust, we have a strong intent, and we have growing awareness. But our biggest risk, if I have to think of risk for us here, it's that it's not about the technical failure, it's losing public and workforce trust for moving faster with AI than how fast our clinical governance frameworks can move. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you. Thank you so for an excellent response to the entire panel. Thank you so much. Now, finally, the elephant in the room. Across industries, the lessons from AI's first wave was blunt. And it's to what you've all touched on. AI rarely fails because the models are weak. It fails when organizations rush in without the foundations, the right people, the right metrics. The organizations that came out strongest, again, to what you've said, Dr. Ronke, are those that invested mostly in their people during this shift. They didn't use technology as a reason to cut them. So in one or two sentences from our entire panel, what is the single most important thing African health systems should do differently to make AI at scale deliver lasting value versus another cycle of dependence? I will start with you, Dr. Pimenta.
Well, I think everybody has touched on what we all kind of believe people is at the center of any transformation that will last. So the technology, and I just kind of want to kind of bring a food for thought. The 2025 Nobel Prize of Economics has actually pretty much kind of emphasized that what's going to really make or break deployment of technology is kind of leadership and people. So if people are at the forefront integrating technology properly into workflows and what the system and people really need, those are the organizations that are going to be successful. So I just want to leave that over there and food for thought. Some very, very robust, obviously, work that has been done in economics is already demonstrating that empirically. And it's a pleasure to listen to Dr. Ronke and her perspective on NHS and the UK and how this is kind of being fought at a system level. So I leave it there. People matter and they need to be at the center.
Thanks so much for your thoughts, Isabel. Milton?
I'll say, when I was doing my PhD, doing AI was really hard. Now, fast forward today, right? There's about easily 1,000 to 10,000x improving productivity. So if you give me a smart PhD student or undergrad student, I think you're going to be surprised how much he or she can create. Again, this doesn't need to be a school in Silicon Valley, could be any school in Africa. Really, that's what this can change. I'll say, instead of deploying the Google, the Anthropic, make those Silicon Valley company even more wealthy, you should just invest in the framework, let you own and build your own AI model, stay within the country. And I think you'll be really surprised at all your local talents, what they can create and build.
Thank you so much, Milton. We look forward to bringing you back to Africa permanently. Dr. Malici, your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think for me is do the boring part first. that is take time to process and make sure there is a buy-in, make sure the AI that you're deploying is actually context specific, and then also address the bottleneck. Once you do that, I don't think the technology is the problem. So the process, the understanding, and also bringing the data and building that trust for the technology to build on is critical. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Dr. Akerele?
Okay, I'd like to summarize into sentences. I think the first